We barely spoke on the drive up to Uncle Bob's. I think we were all mentally fortifying ourselves for what had to come next. The one bit of conversation came from Kevin.
You know, I always thought it was somehow all my fault.
He said quietly from the back seat.
Like, there was something I did that made her treat me like this. And I was stupid or lazy for not figuring it out.
Amazing how she fucks your mind, right? I changed lanes. Look, just because someone donates a chromosome doesn't make them a parent. It's not your fault she can't act like a human being. She was doing that long before you came around. Kevin gave a little shrug. He had leaned forward, so he dripped over the seat back with his elbows. Sarah touched his arm. Hey, I've got a tip. That guilt you're feeling, turn it into anger. Get angry and stay angry. It'll keep you going. It's what got me through my scumbag uncle's parole hearing. Kevin shrugged.
But I feel like if I do that, she wins somehow. Like, she brought me down to her level.
No, man. She wins by making you feel too guilty to act, and then you're more guilty for not acting. I turned off to the country road where Bob lived. Who cares about being on her level? You ever kidnapped a kid? Kevin shook his head. Ever tried to feed your dying father's flesh to his unsuspecting family? Kevin, now smiling a bit grimly, shook his head. See, there you go. No matter what she says, no matter what head trip she tries to lay on us, actions speak louder than words. Remember that. Kevin squeezed my shoulder. We were never as close as we probably could have been, but I've always kind of thought of him as the brother I never had. As we pulled into Bob's driveway, my headlights outlined Uncle Tim. Tim looked relatively jolly, long neck in hand. He gave me a rib-cracking hug when we got out of the car.
I always knew you were my favorite nephew.
He growled in my ear. Mom was at the door in a festive Christmas sweater, all smiles.
Hey, baby.
She pressed a kiss to the sides of me and my wife's heads.
War party's in effect. Grab some cider, and let's get started.
When I broke the news about Carol, I wasn't expecting this.
The truth never does what you expect, sweetie.
Mom pinched my arm through my coat sleeve.
Deal with it.
I stopped in my tracks when I came to the living room. When Kevin said she'd called everyone, she'd meant everyone. There was Ellie and Ty. There was Tim's current wife, all the uncles, my dad, Aunt Amy passing around a tray of crackers and cheese. Even Kevin's girlfriend, Tanya, had snuck in, shooting us a cheeky grin. I'll admit, I was kind of overwhelmed as I looked around the room. It hadn't occurred to me how big our family really was, and how many of us had been screwed over by Carol. My mom took up a fireplace poker and wrapped it on the coffee table.
The war party is now in session,
she said.
Now, I'd like to cede the floor to my son, who is going to bring us all up to speed.
I cleared my throat. Public speaking always made me nervous. I started with the wedding story, just in case someone had missed it. Then I segued into what happened earlier in the night, and already felt like another lifetime. I could see Tim's face seesaw between disgust and anger. Aunt Amy glowered. My mom set her jaw and played with the cheese knife from the snack tray, digging into the arm of the chair. And so that's where we are. I finished. I figured she'd go after Kevin next, so we brought him here. As to where she'd go after that,
Here.
Uncle Bob interrupted. We all looked at him. Bob was looking down at his hands. Aunt Amy leaned into his back.
She pushed everything off on me,
He said,
especially after Dad died. She'll come after me to make me fix everything or punish me. Or both.
I sighed. Shall I tell them, or do you want to? Bob, still looking down, launched into the tale of Carol's hit and run. Tim's jaw tightened. Uncle Craig's wife looked at him, shocked. I don't think he ever told anyone about it. Tim either. When Uncle Bob finished, Mom shook her head.
So she just used you as a fixer since Dad died, and you went right along with it.
Tim took an angry swig from his beer.
Look, I know I fucked up, Lila, and I want to fix that tonight.
Bob ran a hand through his hair. Mom looked a little bit appeased.
How do you propose to do that, Robert?
Tim cut in.
Kill her.
A ripple went through the whole room. Certainly, we'd all been thinking it, but the people who weren't in so deep, Tim and Craig's wife, for starters, looked a little disturbed at the statement.
But isn't that just a little extreme?
Uncle Craig, always the voice of reason.
I mean, we can't do that, can we?
And I am so glad he phrased it like that, because that was just the opening I needed. I stood up to get everyone's attention. I was shaking a little from adrenaline and anxiety. I know your dad taught you that family's first before anything else, I said. But Sarah and the girls, they are my family. I'm going to protect them, no matter the cost. Should I do this? I don't have a lot of other options, but can I do this? Oh, hell yes I can. My mom was giving me a "I knew I raised you right" grin. My dad nudged my knee fondly. Kevin stood up.
I know I'm responsible for at least part of this.
Bob's face fell.
Oh no, son, no.
Because you didn't want to fuck up my life along with hers.
Kevin continued, speaking louder over the protest of his uncles.
But I've been thinking tonight, a lot, and I realize that this is what she does. She uses how much we care against us. She holds us ransom against each other.
His voice shook a little. I knew everyone was thinking about the custody battle.
She uses us like weapons? Well, I'm going to turn those weapons against her tonight. You don't have to join me in this if you don't want to. I'm just asking you nicely. Please don't stop me.
Of course, no one was going to speak against that. The man was a genius. Tanya stood up and hugged Kevin. My mom was next. Bob wrapped them both in his big bare arms. Tim just gave them a one-handed back pat. Craig stood and put his hand on Kevin's shoulder. No one spoke for a long time.
So what do we do?
Ellie blurted out. She seemed flustered. I could sympathize. She'd had to leave her 3 young kids with the babysitter too. I have to wonder how much Craig kept from her, protecting her in his own way.
She'll come here,
Bob said after disengaging from the hug.
I don't know how long it'll take her, but we'll meet her here. End her. Here.
Craig spoke up.
What if somebody stops her along the way?
You've never been that lucky.
Tim said.
Why start now?
It might take a while. Do we make weapons?
Tanya frowned. I've got an idea. I took my wife's hand. Why don't we tell some stories? We all looked at each other.
Sounds like an idea.
My mom said with a smile.
Who wants another cider?
We exchanged carol stories. Some unknown, some making their first appearance in the company. It kept us alert and awake until we heard that heavy, wooden thud on Bob's driveway.